Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now, when it comes to transformations, this little trope of Dragon Balls is intrinsically linked with it. When you talk about a character getting a new power and this physiology changing considerably, then you have yourself a transformation. And that puts you into close quarters with the classic Super Saiyan and the like. And yes, I know, people out there will be counting Ultra Instinct and Ego as techniques instead of transformations, but for the purposes of this video, they are transformations, since there is a notable and obvious difference in appearance, power, and general tone of the user. So just roll with it, okay? Besides, I think we can do something better than those forms anyway, and something unique to its user. Or at least something that is a little more interesting. It's been quite a while since we last tried to figure out new forms for established characters, but remembering how well you guys reacted to our previous contributions to the pool of fan-made forms such as Sparking Joy here and Divine Mind for Goku and Vegeta, we decided to give it a go once more. Oh, and of course the forms that we came up with for the younglings, Primordial Power, remember that? Something that would work well with Saiyan human hybrids. Do check out the videos up top for information on those, but today, we felt inspired thanks to the direction that Dragon Ball wishes to go, and that direction has something to do with different forms for different folks. Especially since after the Granola arc and the latest movie Superhero, we kinda know more about the direction and tone of customization that the divine forms can potentially undergo, and how the user can adapt to it. You could theorize that once you attain the ultimate power of potential unleashed, your physiology or your own demeanor takes you down a further path that the celestial beings of the Supreme Kais initially guided you down, like with Piccolo and Gohan. So let's experiment with new forms that could be transferred to other characters or even yours. I would really like to see some fan art of these forms over on my Twitter, MasakoX, so feel free to use these and get the word out. The first character on the list may be a little bit surprising, but not really, because it's basically our fan character, or more accurately, our fan interpretation of a pre-existing character, the R&R Raditz. Yes, episode 8 is being worked on, by the way, just so you know, the art is complete. To be fair, most of the What If characters are technically OCs, but with Raditz, this feeling is especially deep due to his backstory, and of course, his initial character traits being rather vague, and us fans trying to build upon them. Basically, there was very little to go on at first, and the fandom ran with that and made Raditz their own, me being an example. That's why we thought that it would be easier for us to give a new divine form to this particular Raditz outside of the narrative for now. It's not exactly going to be like Divine Mind because that's unique to Vegeta. And of course, the prince would be extremely nettled if he knew that Raditz was copying him anyway. Originally, we didn't mean to give Raditz anything like that. The closest that we attempted in the story proper was Mastered Super Saiyan Blue. That form from the manga which caught my interest, where the blue form and ki is contained within you instead of you spewing it out in all directions, making it really inefficient. But between all your Gohan Beasts, Ultra Egos and Ultra Instincts, it just asks for it, doesn't it, for an experimentation. The people here want our Radish to have his own variation of a theme. So let's go. Or so we thought. Then we realized that this wasn't going to be easy. At all. After all, what path would our Raditz follow? The supposed Kai path of potential unleashed? The Ultra Instinct route of the angels? The self-discovery of something similar to Ultra Ego? There really isn't anything established in the lore that would be unique to him, or anyone else. Could be any character other than the main three. Whichever path he chose, somebody had already walked down. It wouldn't be as special, would it? The hard thing with Raditz is that he could fit all three forms, and just making a cookie cutter form or a jack of all trades type of thing is just simply boring and really doesn't warrant a video, so we're not doing that. Then we have to kind of tippy-toe around certain things, like he can dodge, but not as great as Ultra Instinct or else the Goku fans would get mad. He can take hits for days, but not as great as Ultra Ego, or else the Vegeta fans would get mad. Maybe he can hit pretty hard, but he doesn't hit as hard as a Beast and anger the Gohan fans who have been deprived for years. They're the most rabid. Also, his rivalry with Vegeta, familial connections, and their training to Kakarot, and his friendship with Piccolo in our story, who is another example of the potential Unleashed path, by the way, it simply makes things even harder. Resorting to a fourth source of power, even a demonic one, also felt like we were kind of cheating. And also, Raditz doesn't fit this bill either, as it felt overly edgy. But then again, for the fandom, do they really care? The Dragon Ball fandom is infamous for dark, edgy stories. For example, the old Flash animation brutality on Newgrounds. That was my first taste of this trope back in the day, and it certainly won't be the last. We had a look in mind though, a design, but what philosophy should we go with? What kind of fighter is our Raditz, and the original Raditz to boot? He's pretty cunning, resourceful, rather manipulative, loves to show off, a bit of a coward in the original too, fighting both at a distance and extremely close quarters when necessary. Dang, he really has this jack-of-all-trades quality to him, doesn't he? That's the problem. To remain true to Raditz's character, we would need to allow him to take something from all of these three baskets, but what he would take could be on one hand overpowered and on the other, incredibly boring. One idea is that maybe this transformation would allow him to adapt to his enemy in 1v1 combat, but would be weaker against multiple opponents. But narratively speaking, it's not easy to show it in an interesting way. Also, technically, that would endlessly scale, which puts it into the OP category, so scratch that. Well, if Ultra Instinct is supposed to be like a state of Mushin, check out our video up top for more information about that, there is also the state of Zanshi, which is a state of relaxed alertness, a remaining mind. In Kyudo, Zanshin talks about body posture after the losing of an arrow, so when you've shot it and you're sort of like in that remaining posture. This is intended to reflect the higher meaning of Zanshin, which is a cerebral aspect maintained before, during, and after an action. In karate, Zanshin is the state of total awareness. It means being aware of one's surroundings and enemies whilst being prepared to react instantly. Constant, never-ceasing vigilance. Could you make something that is based on that, being alert? This concept doesn't fit Ultra Ego, but it could fit Raditz with his Swiss Army knife nature. In the context of Kendo, Zanshin is a continued spiritual state, possessing acute levels of alertness and physical readiness to meet something head-on, such as an opposing attack, that must be maintained when one returns to their neutral position after attacking. It is one of the essential elements that defines a good attack, and being ready for another one at short notice. Essentially, the ability to effectively counterattack. I also think of Aikido in a way. Basically, Raditz is going to be able to subvert their opponents and use their own strength against them. In this state of hyper-awareness, Raditz can sense opportunities around them and use them to his advantage. It's connected to his perception as well as his power. He is being resourceful. Raditz would be excellent at sensing his opponent and their traits and their potential responses, thinking about every single thing that could happen. While Vegeta's divine mind gives him powers to dodge and react, Raditz's variation recognizes patterns and breaks up the enemy's attacks to their detriment, meaning they don't really have a leg to stand on and they're all sort of left flailing around in desperation. In a way, it's similar to Granola's ability to see weak points, only less cerulean. Now, of course, this does seem overpowered, but we do have a way to turn it down. Remember the weaknesses of Sparking Joy and Divine Mind? That you can basically lose yourself if you use it too much in one session? Or overwork your mind to the point of exhaustion and insanity? These powers cannot be used lightly, so I think the same thing would apply here. Imagine having to balance between these two options. Yes, this is Ultra Sense. In this form, Raditz's hair goes a nice copper colour. Not silver or golden or bronze, copper, which is a highly underappreciated colour and would look cool with this design. It also sort of harkens back, incidentally, to primitive Saiyans, that classic shot here of them with their more brown hair. Only this time for Raditz, it's shinier. Ooh, he's a shiny boy. Raditz's gaze would be extremely focused, with his aura being rather subtle when you compare it to Sparking Joy or Divine Mind, with his pupils being like little crosshairs instead of your typical ones. Again, the main weakness of this form would be that you cannot hold it for long. In this case for Raditz, even less, as this form would usually last through one solid exchange of hits and then break off, usually to try and take the opponent down and subvert them in the heat of battle. Use it to counter, and then you would be expected to revert to another power to then enact your main prolonged push. But when he is in that form, it lets Raditz feel even the slightest flaw in his opponent's movements, even if they don't show it. Flaws that wouldn't make a difference in normal combat, but could be vital if things get hairy. Every bit of knowledge counts. Alright, one character done. We've got 2 more for you today. But these 2 are practically freebies. So another character that could very well go down the potential unleashed route is the Krill Dog. He already had his dormant power drawn out thanks to that 2-parter before the Tournament of Power. That went nowhere. And now he could ask Shenron for a little boost of his own, since Piccolo did it. After all, he also did it in his own What If, so why not here? The great thing about this is that it's not exactly cheating for a cheap power boost, but opening yourself up to a whole new dimension and aspect of training. Of course, it would start with Ultimate Krillin, who would not be so different from the regular one, since there is no bang seen to be down, but then he could evolve from there. Of course, we would do something with his trademark marks on his forehead. We would make them glow, Shaolin Showdown style, but with an orange tint. Not only would that be similar to Orange Piccolo, but it would complement the Turtle School's Orange Gi and his connection with Goku, and in that regard sparking joy. Now, he would be bulkier than his usual form, but in that sort of lean way some characters are drawn. Not like a big muscly guy like Piccolo, but more akin to Super Saiyan 3. Strong, but also kinda lean. And the last thing we would do, and this could sound like maybe we're going over the top here, but Gohan Beast? I think that's over the top. I think we could do this. But hear us out. He would have an orange turtle shell on his back made from his ki. Not only does this kind of fit the weirdness of these forms, this greatly complements Krillin as the ultimate student of the Turtle School, their greatest champion. But wait, Masako, isn't Goku their ultimate champion, since he's the strongest character? Well, yeah, kinda, but he doesn't really represent the school much anymore. He doesn't equate himself as one of them these days. He's his own being, he does his own thing. Krillin still exudes the school all the time. Now, this version of Krillin could perform many cool tricks. He could form shell shields to protect his friends, as this is often his main motivation, to help people. His solar flares would not only blind individuals, but actually do burning damage as well to his foes. And those shells mentioned earlier, they could quickly, at a moment's notice, spin and spin and spin, rotating fast enough that they could become a variation of the Destructo Disc in a pinch. As for his behaviour, Krillin would be able to take a punch, being extremely durable, so his movements would be like a turtle, he'd be slower. His movements would be extremely rare but meaningful, with occasional snaps, like a snapping turtle. Oh, he'd have red eyes too, just like Orange Piccolo and Gohan Beast. And we would call this form Sagacious Krillin. Sage-like. We'll discuss how powerful it could be after we talk about the second candidate for the potential unleashed power, who is Tenshinhan. No surprises here. This guy deserves to follow this path too, and we have chosen him with a very specific intent, due to him being essentially the Crane School equivalent of Krillin, their greatest champion technically. So what are we going to do with our good old Tenny boy? Easy start. Permanent forearms. Basically, it's simply cool. We would make these 2 additional appendages made out of ki, which would, in this case, be a teal, light blue and green colour. Now, another interesting factor would be, is that he would sort of be in a permanent state of having several mirror images of himself at once to complement his multiform. As all of them would be semi-translucent, it would be hard to determine which Tenshinhan would be the real one. Also, he'd be able to control all of them at once, so basically, in this transformation, Tenshinhan would look like a wall of 4-armed fighters, walking toward you, just like a constant presence looming down on you. And it's not really like Ultra Instinct, since when a user is dodging, Tenshinhan would be in several places at once already. How can you dodge something that's already there in front of you? You're just sort of dodging into it. Of course you can break those images until one of them remains, but he's still quite potent even then. We would call this transformation Tenshinhan the Legion, since they are many. Now power-wise, Tenshinhan the Legion and Sagacious Krillin, these would be not as powerful as like the Saiyans or Piccolo, but we think they would be at a level of certain Pride Troopers from Universe 11, maybe at Dispo's level of power? The power boost should be massive, but not insane enough to make them match the likes of Jiren, otherwise it would be a little bit ridiculous. But still powerful enough to provide useful assistance. And both of those forms complement each other, with Krillin being sturdy and practically immobile, and Tenshinhan basically putting constant pressure on the opponent. And that's it! It took us some time, but we finally got there. We hope that you guys enjoy this installment. Do you want us to cover more characters? Because there are quite a few Earthling characters that deserve this treatment, as well as movie characters and villains. Do let me know down in the comments, and I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!